podcast without a major sound problem right off the bat. All right, we are now streaming live on Facebook. And if I can catch, there we go. All right. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Solution Sunday. I am Lisa Warner. I am the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing, and I am here today with two of my favorite people on the planet, Ms. Deanna Hansen and Mr. Quinn Castelane of Block Therapy. Deanna is the founder of Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy, and Quinn is the VP of Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy. And we are here today talking about alignment. So good morning, Quinn and Deanna.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us. And also, just so everyone knows, Quinn is also my nephew. Just needed to share.
It's a family affair.
It is. Good morning, everyone.
And alignment, that's what you guys specialize in with the body. So Deanna, why don't you start off by telling us what alignment and our bodies mean in block therapy terms?
Sure. So there are three pillars to block therapy. The first one is creating space. So whenever I'm talking about alignment, I always refer to space, because at the end of the day, really, we connect, or God lives in the space. Not in the density, not in the fabric, but in the space between all of it. So every single cell in the body has a position that is rightful to that cell. And the goal is that if we can keep every one of those trillions of cells in their rightful position, there is optimal space in and around each one of those cells so that we can truly connect to our highest selves. And when we do block therapy, we target the fascia system. So what happens over time with gravity, unconscious breathing, unconscious posture is gravity basically starts propelling us downward. And we're dominant on one side. So we're asymmetrical to begin with. And we age in a forward rotational direction. So as we do that, as we go through issues of injury, stress, even surgery, trauma, all of those things, our body starts to shut down in its capacity to breathe fully and completely. And that causes us to tip off balance. So what the fascia does in response to that is it creates adhesions or grips onto the bone, actually, which is the root of the issues, to attempt to keep us upright. So each day, each passing of time, we keep falling further and further out of alignment, and the cells get pulled away from their rightful position. And the further they are from their home, the less space there is around them. So we lose that connection to our higher selves. And this is the way that I see it from the perspective of how our heart works. So the heart is obviously far more than a pump, but it's also that pump to send blood and oxygen to each and every one of these trillions of cells, or trillions of cells, however many there are, there's many. So each cell, when receiving energy, sends a signal to the brain. So actually, our brain, our mind, is here to respond to the intelligence of all of the cells. But if we have adhesions blocking that blood flow so that those cells can't reach that blood and oxygen, they end up shutting down. So then we have gaps in the system. And the way that I see it is, this is what really connects us to the ego, because the gaps in the system are also connected to the gaps in proper diaphragmatic breathing. And it was Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now that I first read, and I love this because it was so in sync with what we teach, that when we are breathing diaphragmatically, we are living in the moment, which connects us to a certain brain pattern that is calm. When we are breathing through the muscles of the upper chest, it connects us to the past and the future, which isn't real. And that's where fear lives. And it connects us to a stressed frequency. So when we don't have the connection to the breath, which ultimately means the connection to all of our cells, we end up living in this fear space. False energy acting real is the acronym I like using for fear, because to me that makes perfect sense. So the more of the cells that are pulled away from proper alignment, the less connection we have to the moment, which is where God lives.
I love that. That is so beautiful. And it reminds me so much of the fractal universe, how everything is similar. You know, when I was a really little girl, like 2 and 3 years old, I would have these experiences at night when I was falling asleep of just floating in space. I was just an attention point, and I could look at the earth and humanity and the history of humanity. I could see, I can't explain how I did this, but it was just there. I could see the history, and I could see that humans were asleep, meaning that they had forgotten their soul. And from that attention point where I was, there was just unconditional love.
Mm.
And I realized that that's the space of the quantum field. And it's just unconditional love. That's it. And this is what you're explaining about the space in between the cells. And when we're not in these physical bodies, we're just the attention point that is connected to the quantum field of unconditional love. And when we come into these physical bodies, it's like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I am not this space anymore. And then we stop that breathing. And every time in our lives, when something like shocking happens, it's like, and we stop the breath, and the energy stops right there. So there's a spot where the energy is stopped. So I love that. Quinn, what is alignment to you?
Well, of course, alignment means a lot. And I'll explain this more from a little bit of a different perspective, because everything Deanna said is extremely intelligent and I 100% agree. But even when it comes more to the physical body, we need to kind of understand all of our base foundations, because we are physical. So we're both, and we're here for an experience. We're here to learn. We're here to evolve and gain experience. And that's only going to accumulate to more wisdom. So when we talk more physical now, because we're connected in all the three ways, like the mind, body, spirit, the soul. And that's extremely important to always keep in mind, because that's just what we are. But when we talk more physical and we get the physical body under control, then it's a lot more easily to access your higher self, or that connection to spirit, or even have that awakening where I am here having a physical experience. I'm awakened to this now, and I get it, right? And a lot of people, especially light workers, they're uncertain of, like, as soon as we come back here in this lifetime, we don't really know until we have that awakening moment. And we'll always kind of have an awakening moment. So I'm kind of going through an awakening moment right now as well. And it's very profound. It's very cool. It's painful at times, but what's kept me grounded is the block, is breathing and creating that space to allow the flow. So we talk about three foundations in the body: one for the core, one for the lower body, one for the upper body. And these are the main foundations that we all need to address pretty well. Well, as soon as we start block therapy, this is what we address. So the core foundation is the diaphragm. So when we connect to the diaphragmatic breath, we're able to feed the body up to 6 times the amount of oxygen. But because we're so collapsed due to unconscious posture and breathing, we collapse over the diaphragm. We lose that pump. We're not able to access the breath fully. So that's the very first thing we need to do. And that's the first foundation we address. And then the second one for the lower body is the concept of rooting, which may sound funny initially. Deanna, she's going to laugh at me because I'm about to say this, but it's the squeezing of the anus muscle. And I know that sounds interesting, but it comes down to proper pelvic alignment, aligning the whole lower body properly. And when you connect to the root, that's what we call it, rooting. It's connecting to your root chakra, and that's going to help align everything up the chain as well. And then the third foundation, more in the upper body, is the tongue muscle. So understanding where to align the tongue. And even right now, if you're watching, just bring your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and then you'll feel your teeth. But if you pull your tongue about a centimeter distance away from your teeth, that's where the tongue should actually be aligned. And it's so easy for us to fall forward when we're in front of technology, when I'm on my phone, and the tongue becomes extremely weak. And even Deanna has mentioned, if somebody has a double chin, it's not necessarily a double chin, it's a displaced tongue. It's when that has fallen out of alignment. When the cells are falling out of alignment, they cause a ballooning effect and everything's out of whack. So when you understand all three of these foundations, the tongue muscle is one of the strongest muscles, individual muscles, I should say, in the body. And we use it to support the weight of the head and the neck. So when we first understand to connect the diaphragm, connect the rooting and the lower body and the upper body, and it's going to take time, of course, because it's new concepts. It's new muscles that we need to strengthen, because everyone's like, alignment, let's do a plank or let's do a deadlift, and that's going to strengthen my alignment. Not necessarily. So that's why we need to address these core foundations and build off of that, because yes, physical strength and alignment is important, but it's not going to benefit you nearly as much if you miss those three foundations.
Beautiful. You know, I love how you were talking about, you know, connecting to that breath. And from my perspective, the soul is in the breath. It's the non-physical part of us. And when we're not breathing properly, we're not connecting properly to the core of who we are. And that is beautiful. We wanted to say good morning to Eve. Kathy Homeyer's here with us this morning. My dad and Kinsey, Shannon. Hey, good morning, Shannon. Shannon's also in your community, the block therapy community. I think almost everybody here is.
Nice.
Eve, we're getting her into block therapy. I sent her the link the other day. So we have a really nice common connection here. So many of, I always recommend block therapy to any of my clients, because it is such an incredible healing tool to really bring everything back into alignment. So, and Michelle Falkowski this morning, she's also got her block. She's been making amazing progress with her block as well. So we love that. So, you know, in talking about alignment and breath, I know that there are so many, I remember that it was really helpful when I was listening to you talk, Deanna, about anxiety and the breath and how the cells are involved in anxiety. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And just to, preface what Quinn was talking about with the rooting action and what you had mentioned about the breath being connected to the soul. I can't remember the names. It was years ago when I was taking Iyengar yoga, but it's at the front of the sacrum where the origin for the life force receptors reside. So if our sacrum isn't aligned, which comes from that rooting action, then we aren't tapping in, we aren't basically giving the foundation of the life force receptors the opportunity to have everything move through the body most efficiently. And another thing from the perspective of breath, if we don't have that alignment in the core, it's impossible for us to access fully and completely the diaphragmatic breath. So if the cell itself isn't receiving the food and the nutrients and the energy and all of the things that each cell needs, that is why, in my opinion, the cell gives us the signal that it is anxious. And I mean, I used to struggle with anxiety, and there are still moments when I am absolutely anxious because I am still a work in progress, as we all are. But the reality is I don't have anxiety. If I'm feeling anxious, it's because I'm not treating all of my cells with what they need, giving them the full amount of breath. Maybe I'm working too hard. Maybe I'm not sleeping enough. Maybe I'm treating my body in a way that isn't in alignment with my soul. So then the anxiety comes from the cells communicating with us that they're here doing their job. And I always refer to The Life of the Cell by David Belinsky, because if you just watch this, you see what actually happens in each and every single cell. And it is a universe of synchronized, beautiful activity. And when you actually think that There's trillions of these in our body, and they're all working all the time. They don't take a rest. So if we don't support the cells to support us, they're speaking to us. They're saying, hey, mom or dad, like, you're asking me to do a workout, or you're asking me to pull an all-nighter, or whatever that is, and you expect me to just feel calm and happy. It's not going to happen, because we need to treat ourselves with the respect that they treat us with. And they're going to listen to the respect that we treat them with. And when I was in the very beginning process of awakening myself, when I read the Celestine Prophecy and I was 50 pounds overweight, and I spent, it was actually quite comical, because in my past, all I stressed about was my belly, because it was big. I felt unattractive. I felt it took away confidence. So that literally plagued me 24/7. And I actually thought in that moment, if I had the body that I wanted, I would never be in stress, because all I stress about is how I look and how my belly feels. And that's changed. And so I realized that's not true, because I still feel stressed quite a lot for a number of reasons. But it's so interesting that really it's just a state of mind, but it's a state of our cells. And that's the whole thing about having that blood flow reaching those cells. That is the state of mind, is the state of our cells. So if our cells are far away from home and they're not being paid attention to, and they're not being given love and respect and energy and all the things that they need, then they're going to speak to us. And anxiety and pain and whatever sensation it is, it's really simply the baby crying. It's the language of the cell.
Absolutely. Quinn, what do you have to say about anxiety?
Well, that was super good, because a lot of people, like, we talk a lot about meditation. I'm big into meditation as well. And yes, meditation can help significantly with quieting the mind, with anxiety. But a lot of people who are in a high anxious state, it's really hard for them to sit still and just to follow a meditation right off the bat. So that's why connecting to your actual physical body is so important, and it's such a good first step. It's always going to be my main step, but connecting to your cells, connecting to your breath by actually having a prop to get into your belly, to access your diaphragm, to calm down your cells, that's going to bring you into an extremely relaxed state. You're going to be more present, more in the moment. That's the power of the breath as well. That's the power of fascia decompression. So I fully agree with Deanna. We're on that same page when it comes down to the cells, and the cells need to be fed and kept clean, because if they're toxic or if they're being overworked, they're not going to be responding nicely. And a lot of people even will go to the gym or go for a run as a stress reliever. And sure, that can help. But at times, if your cells are out of alignment, your body's out of alignment, then you're going to the gym and you're building yourself more further out of alignment. It might give you a little trick and think that it helped you with that anxiety in the moment, because yes, you let out some like energy, you let out some emotion, but you can trap yourself more. And then that can actually add to more anxiety the next day or in the future. So people are just caught up in this cycle of, I'm going to run every single day, or I'm going to work out every single day, thinking that they're actually helping, but they can be trapping more toxicity, more negative energy. They're not releasing it correctly, because when we talk about the fascia is the connective tissue that holds every one of our cells, systems, and structures together. So if it's out of alignment, which it is for all of us, and we keep training, it's only going to be pulling the cells more out of alignment. So that's why with block therapy, we need to first off address the fascia. We need to release it. We need to connect to the proper breath to inflate and oxygenate and remove the waste in the cells, and then start building proper alignment. But we're not going to just jump to the gym or anything like that. Even though a lot of people, especially younger people, are like, I just want to look a certain way, I'm going to go to the gym and build, or I'm going to run and this is my goal. And that was me as well. But when I really sat with it, I realized it was actually doing the opposite of what I thought it was. So that's why you need to kind of strip back that ego a bit and start from your roots. And the roots is the cells, and the roots is the breath. So once you get that going, then, and your body's more in alignment, then you're in alignment. Then you know what your body needs. You're more aware. So yeah, that's kind of my viewpoint as well. So again, just not rushing it, just again, getting in your body first rather than just jumping to something else, such as meditation or working out. That's why block therapy is not only helping Deanna and I with anxiety, but thousands of people with anxiety as well.
Beautiful. You know, my experience with anxiety was a little bit different in that, like, I hadn't learned about block therapy yet. And my belly was still really, really big, and I was really anxious about that too. But my body was also like severely out of balance, and you know, I had this whole cancer thing over my head, and I couldn't get away from it. No matter where I went, there it was. And so I was super anxious. And after a while, I thought, you know, once I kind of made it over the hump with the whole cancer thing, then I was anxious about money. And so I was like, this is still here. And what I realized after a while was, well, wait a minute. If I take the label off this, if there's no word called anxiety, what am I actually feeling?
I love that.
And what I realized was I'm feeling frequency. I'm feeling energy. And I thought, I can change energy. And so I simply started deep breathing. I started to look at the energy like a cloud. I would gather up the anxiety energy. I would gather it up as in a cloud with my inner vision. And then I would just breathe it. I would breathe it in, and when I would breathe it down into the ground. Obviously, I was diaphragmatic breathing because, you know, I'm not consciously, but that's what breathing it in and breathing it out. And I could change after I learned that technique of seeing it as an energy rather than like an emotion that I couldn't get away from. I knew that I could just transmute that energy. And that's the basis of all alchemy, is changing one thing into another. It's not about changing metal into gold. It's about changing an energy, one negative energy, into a positive energy. And you know, that's a real, for any of you guys out there that are watching, this is a hack. This is the hack that I used literally to overcome the cancer thing, because I realized, wait a minute, if there was no word for what was going on in my body, what would be going on in my body? There's me and my body. My body is out of balance. That's it. There's nothing else. If you take the label off, you get yourself unstuck about 1,000,000 times faster. Because as soon as I realized it was the label that was messing with my head, like cancer, it's a scary thing, you know, and anxiety, it's a really bad thing, you know, it's a disorder or whatever they call it. It's like, that's the part that's scary. That's the part that gets us stuck. So anybody that's out there stuck in anything, take the label off. And what do you have left?
That's beautiful, Lisa. And I think too, what's really interesting is the concept of force versus persuasion. So, you know, as Quinn was saying, like, you know, if you're feeling a certain way, you might go to the gym and you might try to get it out of you. Or for me, like, I think we are so conditioned to be result oriented as opposed to in the moment. So you hear about something, and this was my life. I heard about something and then I would dive in 100% and I would just go because I wanted to. I mean, I was doing 400 sit-ups a day to try to make my belly smaller. And you know what that did? It made it bigger. It made it more full of adhesion. It created more pain, more constipation, more anxiety. So that's the thing. Like we all have these ideas that we need to work hard. I mean, one of my dad, you know, one of his sayings to me every time I came home, and it was absolutely out of love, but he would like, "Oh dear, did you work hard today?" And it was almost like, and if you didn't, you know, well, then what were you doing? You were being lazy? Like, so it's interesting now because I've noted that I've really pulled back on using my physical body. I mean, as a body worker for so many years, I was physically working 8 to 10 hours a day. And I mean, it was just ridiculous. I could do it. I had the strength and the capacity to do it, but it took a massive toll. So, I mean, God bless COVID, because one of the things that's happened is I am working so much less on patients. And what I'm observing is the efforts I had to take before to attempt to get my body into balance are so much less now. I can sleep a whole day and I feel better the next day than if I worked really hard. Like, you know, that rest phase. I think we really need to realize that we have been pummeled. Absolutely. Our soul, our psyche, our physical bodies, like we are simply exhausted. And to give ourselves the space, the time and the space to step back and to say, I'm not going to accomplish something today. And it was interesting because years ago when I was stressing about money, I think the name of the book was Money is My Friend. And I'm reading this book, and what this author was saying is once a week, he stays in bed because that gives him the sense that the world still continues even without him. And I'm thinking, a week, like a day a week in bed, but hey, I'd love to embrace that now. I love spending a day in bed, not having to do anything. That's not necessarily what happens, but I do a month. I do give myself one day a month where and it's a weekday. It's not a weekend. It's a day in the middle of the week where I'm like, I mean, I'm still present at my community stuff, but where I'm not going to plan things that I have to be present for. And that is my favorite day because it's the Deanna day, you know, it's the day that allows me to be lazy. And I mean, it's not being lazy. That's the wrong word even, because that goes against the whole thing, but it's to be present and to be restful and to listen to what I do need, because we are here for so many people, whether you're a parent or you're running a business or you have a job or you are an athlete, like whatever that looks like, we have so much going outward all the time. So to be able to just step back and give us some inner reflection and to be able to appreciate that and not feel guilty for it. That took a while for me to get over the feeling of, okay, now I'm feeling guilty because I'm not doing anything. And that's where I think just our conditioning has really led us astray in what is really important to our soul and our physical body as well.
Beautiful. Deanna Courtney says, I'm having a Deanna day today. Yay.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, Deanna is our resident German New Medicine practitioner. And, you know, in German New Medicine, the 5 biological laws and the cycle of healing that we've never been taught as humans. We've all just been taught that, you know, hey, there's something wrong with your body, you better go get it fixed. But when we learn what the body actually has its own natural cycle of healing, the final phase is the rest and rejuvenation phase. And the body needs us to rest. So when we get tired, you know, we're exhausted, like you said. We are all exhausted. Humanity is exhausted. And when the body calls out to say, I need sleep, what's our natural response? Oh my God, let me have another cup of coffee because I need to keep going. I need to keep going. And we try to push through. But what happens is, then the healing phase is either really, really prolonged and we go, oh my gosh, you know, now I have, what's it called? Where like, you know, now I have like some sleep disorder where I just need to sleep all the time. I don't have any energy. Well, it's because you haven't allowed yourself to just rest and allow the body to move through that healing cycle. So, you know, we have to, what I've realized is that as humanity, we have been taught completely backwards. Like everything that we have learned is literally backwards from the way it is, you know, and talking about this, it's like, you know, well, let me just push through this. Let me keep going to work. Let me have another cup of coffee. Let me just keep going. It's like, no, let me listen to my body and let me call in and take a sick day. I remember when I when I used to work at the rink teaching skating, and I would get there early in the morning to teach the kids before they went off to school, and then I'd work during the day, at the rink, planning all the events. Then I would teach in the evening, and then I'd get home and it was like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep. and then I would get so run down, and I would just want to I just want to call in sick today. But I wouldn't do it because I thought, oh, there's nothing really wrong with me. I'm just tired. I really can't call in sick. But it's that's what I really should have done. Then when I quit doing that job as the skating director, it was like, I have all these sick days left over. I should have taken the sick days while they were just going to pay me for them. Oh.
That's hilarious. And it's so true. And then there can be that whole guilt behind it too. Cause you're oh, I could take a rest day, but no, I have to keep going because we've been conditioned and programmed just to keep going since we've been young. And then when that guilt comes in, now that's going to heighten more anxiety. And now you're stuck in this cycle. And it's oh, I got to escape this cycle. How do we escape the cycle? Yeah, it is vicious. That's why they call it the vicious cycle.
Absolutely. Guilt is so insidious because it never comes from us. It never comes from inside. We would never, as the infinite beings that we are, there's nothing to be guilty about. The guilt is always put on us from somebody else. They wanted us to do something that we didn't want to do, so they would guilt us or shame us into doing it. Parents, teachers, ministers, whatever it is, wherever it comes, whoever wants us to do something uses guilt to persuade us, force us to do something. We see that in the world today. If you don't do this, you're going to kill your grandmother. Or if you don't do this, you're going to. It's look at all of the guilt that is being used to persuade specific actions. So to be able to block and to start listening to our bodies and ourselves and ourselves is so important, to be able to stay in alignment with our own truth. It's when we start to think about it, it's you can't force health on somebody. It's simply never gonna happen. So when we start to tune inside and we start to listen to ourselves and ourselves, we find that it's actually easy to keep ourselves healthy. It's actually easy to keep ourselves in alignment. And when we know how to keep ourselves and ourselves in alignment, we don't have to go running off asking somebody else to fix us, because we're constantly keeping ourselves in alignment. I know I remember you, Deanna, saying at one point that you really don't go to the doctor.
I haven't seen a medical doctor since I've been 28, so I'm 51 now. So it's been that long. I think to add to Lisa, what you're saying, I think that we are also so habitual. So for me, this whole journey began from a very deep, dark, horrible space. And there was a lot of guilt from my behaviors and my actions in my past. So, sometimes I can tap in, not on purpose, but sometimes I get thrown into feelings of guilt because I just somehow, my mind took me to a moment or out of the blue. So it's interesting what happens when we start diving through the layers of fascia with that block, because depending on when an event happened or when you were a mess in your life or whatever it was, it's layered in and upon itself, because fascia continues to wind up and intertangle and connect, and it's always responding to everything in the moment. And once that breath is locked away, I'm going to say, without the block, and I know this is a very strong statement, but I haven't yet seen anything else that yet allows the diaphragm to become free of the locked condition it's in from the collapse over time, because that collapse is magnetic. And as the fascia will continue to pull us out of alignment, it's literally strangling and manipulating the diaphragm so this muscle can't work fully and completely. So that's the really interesting thing about the diaphragm muscle. It is unique because it's the only muscle that is under both our conscious and unconscious control. So we're built to survive. You know, I mean, until our end day, our body is going to find a way to survive, but that is very different than thriving. And the difference from my perspective between thriving and surviving is thriving is having a diaphragm that is ultimately feeding all of our cells fully and completely. And if that's the case, and I don't think any person on this planet is actually that perfect being, but when that diaphragm is freed up so that it can feed those cells, then those cells are working fully and completely for us. And then there's ease. There's that effortless effort. We're doing our 90-day challenge and we're going into week 10. And the intention of this week is actually effortless effort, because we've gone through one whole cycle of the body and now we're coming back to the foundation. So we're going to see how much change we've made. When we don't have that connection to the diaphragm and when it's locked away, you can do tons of breathing exercises. And all that's going to happen is you're going to be strengthening the muscle to the capacity that it currently has, and keeping it strong in that capacity. We are doing something different here. We are releasing the adhesions so that we can access more of that muscle. And then the more that we do, the more that we breathe, the more we oxygenate, the more cells balloon and wake up, and then we become lighter and it becomes easier to continue to take those steps to free more of the diaphragm. So there's an interesting difference, because we often have, I'll work with singers, for example, and you know, there's a lot of people that think they're breathing fully and completely because they've been a singer and part of their training is diaphragmatic breathing, but it's not the same as releasing those adhesions that are magnetically sealed, holding that muscle out of alignment and freeing it, and then giving that much extra access to oxygenate.
Wow, I love that. And so, I mean, it really is about effortless effort is really all about alignment. Because when we're in alignment, everything is effortless. When we're body, mind, and soul are in alignment, life is effortless. When our body is in alignment, moving is effortless. That's beautiful. And I love the point about magnetic, because we have, everything is electromagnetic. Our thoughts are electrical and the emotions are magnetic.
Mm-hmm.
And they lock together in patterns of thought, negative thought. You know, I should go do this, I have to do that, and those thought patterns, then the electromagnetics are stored in our energy field, which is then transferred to our DNA, which is then transferred into the cells and the fascia. So it works both ways. When we have that aha moment and we have that, like, oh, light bulb, that's when some of the electromagnetics of those negative thought patterns like release, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not being attacked by cancer. Wait a minute, like my body is simply out of balance. That was like a massive release of those thoughts and emotions, which then freed up my body to start the healing process, because I was no longer locked in that thought pattern. And this is why block therapy is so beautiful, because it works both directions. When you unblock the body, that also those thought patterns that are stored in the cells are then released from the cells, which then releases the thought pattern from your energy field. So
Beautifully put.
people
Absolutely.
don't really think about electromagnetics very much. It's like, oh, quantum physicists think about that. Well, we are quantum physics. Like, this is quantum physics. This is how it all works together.
And it's interesting, like if someone's wanting to, let's say, manifest, for example, and that can be anything, manifest healing, manifest money, manifest a relationship. It's interesting how some people can manifest a lot quicker, or things just seem to attract to them with more ease. And why is that? Is it because their brain is just more powerful and they're connecting that thought, that intent, which is throwing it out to the universe, and then connecting the emotion, which will draw it in? Sure, yes. But at the same time, maybe it's those people who are more spacious, more open, that can actually, because then you're not stuck in that program. It's so much easier to manifest, to meditate, when you are open, because yes, the mind's an extremely powerful thing. So if you just have negative thoughts all the time, and you're blocking, the block's 100% going to help, but you still need to break those negative thought patterns as well. So when you combine the two, from my experience, a lot of magic can happen. It's really, really cool. So it's so much simpler when you can just release the body. And even when we're on the block, you might have emotional releases, because think of anxiety again. Anxiety is probably just trapped energy in our cells. And when we physically open that up, it's able to flow out. And then we want to replace that with love, because love is the frequency to heal everything. And if we need to heal everything, including the planet, it all comes from healing each individual and giving that self-love. And the self-love comes from doing the work. If that's blocking, fascia decompression, awakening the cells, breathing properly, getting your mind state correct. And going back to my previous point earlier today, like, we need to connect to the block or to your body first, not always just trying to think of the mind. If you can do that, that's pretty impressive. But this is such a much more simpler approach where you're going to have a greater understanding. You're going to do it with more ease, and it's going to be that much more powerful because everything's open. Everything's just going through. The chakras can be more aligned when the physical body is more aligned. Everything just comes into more alignment. So yeah, that's why for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, like, you need to do some sort of physical practice to get there. And that's what's going to kind of open up all the channels. And then you're in that effortless effort. And that's a really cool place to be. And it's not like once you get there, you're going to stay there forever, because there's frequencies, there's things that come at us all the day, or every day, but that's why we need to make it a daily practice. And maybe it's just doing 15 minutes in the morning, or 30 minutes in the morning, or 30 minutes at, like, whatever floats your boat kind of thing.
I love your point too, Quinn. And I just want to, talk a little more about that, because for me, meditating was extremely hard before this practice, because I was go, go, go all the time. So the moment that you attempt to stop, your brain gets flooded with the realities, and they can be scary. So it's hard to, there's a hump you have to get through in order to be able to allow and to settle. And I had so much confusion in my cells, in my body, in my mind, that for me to simply be in that, Zen state, my brain would not shut off. Where the beauty of blocking is, it's the combination of connecting to pain, because when you're connecting to that pain on purpose with your breath, you have something to focus on. And it's very, very centered. And I mean, the whole, or the definition of meditation is centering your focus and opening your awareness. So by connecting to the breath, we expand the awareness. By connecting to the pain, we are focused in our attention. So the two together create an extremely accessible form of meditation, where for me, before understanding how to move into pain, it wasn't available to me.
I love that. And it's so true. Because I wasn't able to shut my mind off either. But once I started blocking, like, it's gotten really quiet in here.
It's the best.
Right? Exactly. And that's all about manifestation too. Manifestation is 100% about alignment. Our topic for today, because if you're not aligned with something that you want, you can't get it. You have to match your frequency to the thing that you want. So, if you want to manifest $1 million tomorrow, that if you're broke today, manifesting $1 million tomorrow is probably not going to happen because you're not in alignment with that. But if you're a billionaire, you can manifest $1 million in the next minute if you want, because you're fully aligned with that already. You know?
Totally.
I think
So
another
true.
thing that gets confusing as well, especially for the light worker, is we are frequency absorbers.
Yes.
So we are absorbing other people. I mean, we all do, but there's some people that are more magnetic in that regard. And I think that's one of the gifts that I was given, is I'm extremely hypersensitive, which is a blessing and a curse. Like, the curse comes because if you don't understand that, I mean, I remember there was a moment when I was so depressed and stressed and frustrated and lost in my life. And I was working way too much on way too many patients. And I mean, I'm diving like fluid isometrics, just like block, goes very deep into people's bodies. So you're absorbing their stuff as well. And then, you know, I was really trying to reflect on what is wrong with me. And it became extremely clear that this isn't even my stuff I'm trying to process. So the interesting thing, like, especially for the people that are hypersensitives, is that when we have more space, we can allow it in, but we can also let it go. If we don't have that space and we don't have that connection to the breath, we're going to absorb it, but then it's going to stay and it's going to make us nuts, because it's that exhalation, and it's that full exhalation by connecting more strongly to that full diaphragm that allows us to move it out of the body. And again, we've said it thousands of times probably by now, but that study about weight loss, it's about toxin removal. So that's why 84% of weight loss comes through full exhalation, but it's because of the toxin removal. So that also is implicit in what we're talking about with anxiety, because if we have toxic cells, we're anxious as well. They're going to balloon, they're going to increase in size if there are toxins in the body. And they're going to be like little magnets holding on to those negative emotions as well. So the more we can understand that it's all about the flow. We can't stop what's going on. I think we can absolutely affect what's going on, but we can't stop the external world. And it's going to come into our being, but we don't have to allow it to take home in our bodies. We can say, okay, you know what? You're going to serve me. I'm going to let you stay for a while. You don't serve me at all. I'm going to exhale you out and never look at you again. So having that connection to your breath gives you that better capability to deal with those negative energies, with the negative onslaught of media and all the stuff that's going on that's absolutely crazy and making people exhausted. Then we can really put ourselves in the place that this is just noise. What is going on inside here, we actually have control over to a large degree. And, you know, the noise is there and it does affect us, but we don't have to own it or store it.
Beautiful. I love that. It's so true, you know, and talking about, you know, the electromagnetic energy field and everything is frequency. You know, sound is frequency. So words are frequency. So the sounds that are being broadcast, and think about it, that like the airwaves, it's all around us. In the air around us are these frequencies. And anxiety is a frequency. Fear is a frequency. Love is a frequency. And if we're vibrating at the frequency of anxiety, then we're going to be the magnet for anxiety. Mm-hmm. Everything that is being broadcast is being attracted to us. So the ability to align with ourselves, our higher selves, and align ourselves, we start to realize, wait a minute, when I'm in alignment, I feel good. Like, I'm just pretty happy. Like everything is easy when I'm in alignment. And so then it starts to become easier to go, wait a minute, this is me. Like, this is me. When I feel good, I'm being me. And when all of a sudden I'm not feeling good, like, where is that coming from? Who does this belong to? Just like you were saying, Deanna, you know, it's not even my stuff. We're so unaware of our own energy as beings because we've never been taught about energy from childhood, you know. And So we're not even aware that we can feel other people's feelings or energies. So it's so important in this day and age when, you know, fear and guilt and doubt and worry are being broadcast so loud. It's easy to be the antenna, but it's also easy to not be.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
I love
that's
that.
very
So,
true.
Deanna, we have a question for you. Deanna Courtney is asking, Deanna, is it possible for people to jump in on the second half of your 90-day challenge for the second round as a beginner, or will we not be in shape enough?
Everybody's different coming in through it. So everything that we do in all classes really is to respect your breath as being the limit. So it doesn't really matter where I'm taking you when you start doing stuff. If you can't go in it because your natural relaxed breath is being compromised, that's your body letting you know that it's too intense. So I would dive in, and I mean, of course, respect your limits. Reach out if you have any questions or concerns, but it's all the same thing, just to whatever degree you're going to. And I always use the example, like if your goal is to be able to do the splits, you go as far as you can until you get there. So with blocking, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you know, usually I'm instructing Quinn. So I'm the one sitting there and Quinn's the one doing the work. And, you know, we get lots of interesting comments in the group because they're like, oh, Quinn was able to raise his arm up. I couldn't get my fingers off the floor. That's okay. You don't have to. We don't ever have to go beyond the limit that, or the range that we are, well, we shouldn't ever go beyond the limit or the range that we are able to do with that relaxed breath, because that's where the potential for injury comes in. So as long as you respect your breath and you are always respectful of those limits, then absolutely you can dive in, and you'll know right away if it's not for you and you need to go back to the beginning.
And that's something you can do to add. You can always start, like, each day is still up and it's always going to be there for the 90-day challenge. So you can absolutely, as Deanna mentioned, start from the beginning and then work in that order, or you can jump in right where we are. I think we're on like day 60 right now, I believe.
Day 60, yeah, with 30 days
Yeah.
to go, 1 month left. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know, it's flying by. Cool.
It's been amazing. I've loved this 90-day challenge. It's really, I mean, it's great because you're really addressing every single area of the body, from the soles of the feet to the top of the noggin. I mean,
Mhm.
it is really beautiful.
What I really appreciate about this challenge too, one of the hardest things for Quinn and I to teach people is the third pillar, which is alignment, because it's habitual. So if we're in front of that computer, you know, it's easy to collapse back in, especially as we fatigue. I call it the lock and talk. When people are talking, you always see, I do it too still. So, I mean, I'm 21 years in and I still catch myself out of alignment where I'm hyperextending my knees. So alignment is one of those things that we need to be conscious of, but that's the thing, like we're not always conscious. But the more we become conscious, the more conscious we become. And the nice thing about this challenge is with those additional live classes that we've added in, I feel I've really found a way to integrate that one pillar that was harder to teach through the videos that we were doing that are there. So I do feel this is a really nice, full and complete challenge, including the intentions, which, you know, are also about bringing. So again, this week coming, it is effortless effort. Last week, it was clarity. We were focusing in and around the head, and we did work around the eyes and the ears and the breath through the nose. So our brains could be fed more specifically, and we could have that clarity in our life. But then what else in your life this week can you become more clear on? Like what needs to happen? So with this effortless effort, I'm excited because we're going to be doing a lot of balancing. And we're going to see, you know, how effortless is the balance in the body now that we've actually created all of these shifts and brought that strength in alignment to the body. And so I'm excited for these last 4 weeks, because this last pass through will be very telling with the amount of change that people have undergone at this point.
Ooh, this will be fun. I'm looking forward to that. So Eve is asking, I recommended the block to her the other day. So she's asking, when my block arrives, will it bring instructions with how to use it?
Eve, as soon as you signed up, you would have received an email with your login to access our starter program. And then you simply follow through that sequence of everything, and it's all communicated in there. If you didn't receive that email, I would check your spam folder, because sometimes it will go there. And if you're still struggling to find it, please reach out to us. support@blocktherapy.com is where the team can help you.
Beautiful. And what I super appreciate about the block therapy is the membership, the member library. So when I first started, it was like, oh, well, you know, I'll just get the block and I'll go through the starter program and I'll learn how to use the block and then I'll just do it on my own. Yeah, no, like I love having you guys guiding me all the time. And, you know, I can go through, you've got the 21-day programs, you've got the 3-day intensives, you know, you've got so many options for, you know, what does my body need today, or what's the next series that I need to do. And you've been so great about guiding me. It's like, oh, you know, do the 21-day pelvis, legs, and hips series now, you know, then, and Quinn, you've got a great, why don't you talk, you did a little bit on your own about block therapy and fitness.
Yeah, that all does actually come down to alignment, because that was a big struggle for me, because I was thrown in. I shouldn't say thrown in. I threw myself into the realm of bodybuilding at a young age, and that's a very egotistic way of training and of treating your body, and that's something that I'm going through my awakening right now, is about the ego and kind of that shadow side of the ego, which is really important to address. But it took a while for me to figure out, what is Block for Fitness going to be? What makes the most sense that this can address every single person, not just a bodybuilder or an athlete? We're all built up of the same material. So with the Block for Fitness, ultimately what I do, there's about 28 exercises or movements, times that by 2 because there's a beginner and an advanced. And what it does is, first off, I get you to go into that exercise to test it out, because we really break it down to the foundation. So we talk about the diaphragm, rooting, the tongue, but then we start adding on top of that. So it could be shoulder blade alignment. What happens when you're moving and you're doing exercise? Where should the shoulder blades be positioned? But to understand shoulder blade alignment, you need to have the diaphragm and the core and the pelvis and all of that in alignment. Like, everything's so connected. So I bring you through this simple process where it's one day at a time, where it addresses all 3 aspects of the body, kind of in that we start with the core, then the next day it's going to be a lower body, then the next day it's going to be an upper body. And then I kind of just keep building on top of that. So I get you into the exercise, see your limitations, and so you can actually feel the weakness and what's not right. And then I have a recommended block class for you to do. And then right after, you revisit that video and you follow this protocol I put together to strengthen that new alignment, because we've just awakened, we've just released the fascia, the connective tissue, but we want to cement and strengthen that into its correct alignment. So that's the whole process of this. And there's going to be a boatload more added to the Block for Fitness. It's just, there's so many things going on at once right now, but there'll be, because this is more of a video. It's more like one day at a time, but that's how you need to start, because you have to get in tune with your body. You can't just jump into, like, I'm going to call them a fitness flow class, where you're following me for 20, 30 minutes all at once, if you don't understand your body or your alignment, because then you could be building yourself further out of alignment again, as I mentioned earlier. So that's why you really need to strip it back, strip it down, and then rebuild from more of that blank slate. And then you're more conscious of all aspects and foundations of your body and how to integrate that into movement. And then when I start adding in more stuff to the Block for Fitness section, it's really going to come together really nicely. And then people can actually follow a class with me, or however that's going to look. My brain hasn't been super heavy there recently, but hopefully this year I'll start adding more stuff into there.
Wow, that's beautiful. I mean, it's my book is called The Simplicity of Self-Healing. And that's what I really love about block therapy, is that it's so simple. that is like the most profound healing tool that I have ever come across. And I know that at one point in time, I heard that Jesus had said, the meek shall inherit the earth. And what I found was that in Aramaic, the word meek actually means simple. So I realized how powerful simple actually is. And in life, everything is made so complex and so complicated that it puts us in our head trying to figure out what are they talking about. That this, all of this together just brings everything back to the core of who we are, and it helps to bring us back into alignment. That, and when we're in alignment, everything truly is simple. So I so appreciate everything that you two do with block therapy and healing, and how really truly simple it becomes. And, you know, with a few little tweaks, when we get stuck in chronic conditions, even with block therapy, we can still kind of stay stuck. But if you take the label off, if you get rid of the name of the condition and start realizing that the body just literally heals itself, it's sometimes the name of the condition that keeps us stuck. It's that thought pattern, I have this condition, that keeps it locked in place. So when we can take that label off and start realizing my body was out of balance, now I am actively bringing it back into alignment and balance. Therefore, the healing will be automatic. Then we can unlock ourselves from so many things.
And I think that's why it's so brilliant what Deanna created with block therapy, is because we've been taught that the body is so complex, and sure, it can be complex, but when it comes down to the healing, it's actually very simple. So that's why literally all you're doing with block therapy is finding the pain in your body, because we're all unique, our pain's stored differently, and we breathe through that pain. That's what you're doing. It sounds super simple because it is super simple, and that's the point. And that's exactly what you mentioned. Like, it is simple. Like, the body is simple. It's just we have this understanding or perception that it's super complex and confusing. And sure, it is when you break it down into certain ways. But again, when it comes to healing, when it comes to alignment, it's actually a very simple process, and you just keep following that. So.
And dare I say, medicine, I believe, has made it really complicated. I actually don't believe in disease. I believe there's blocks in our fascia, two cells. Whatever those cells are going to respond with symptoms, and we melt through those blocks. So that's just it. There's a business around being unwell. And when we can take ourselves out of the system and bring our healing to ourselves, then we're not imprisoned by that system.
Bless you. And this is the, when we understand about taking the label off things, we start to realize that it's putting the label on things that creates the dis-ease. When I was in the process, because I didn't use the medical system to heal, when I suddenly realized, wait a minute, if this label wasn't here, if I didn't have the name, what would I have? I would have a body that's out of balance. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. There is no disease attacking my body. This is not what's happening. But then you combine that with watching TV, and every other commercial is about a new disease, new symptoms. Wait a minute, I see how they create all of these diseases, and I see how this all works. It's like, it's very tricky. And we've been taught that pain is bad. We've been taught to fear the symptoms. And it's simply a matter of turning on our awareness and going, wait a minute, what's actually happening here? And it's simply, we need to bring ourselves and our cells into alignment. And then everything starts to become clear.
Wow, that's so true. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Beautiful. I want to respect your time. Both of you, thank you so, so much. We've had so many people in our group talking about how all of these things. Shannon says, I'm so grateful for this talk. Can we make t-shirts? Take the label off.
I love it.
I like that. That's really good.
Right? And we have Michelle, she's using her block right now. Eve says, learning to discern the guilt trip game. Right? And yeah, Deanna Courtney says, you're accepting the pain as the process of healing, takes the charge out of it and stops the progression of what was the cause of the off-balancedness.
Beautiful.
And
well said.
you know, we in block therapy, you're so great about addressing the pain. It's like pain is not bad, it's just where the energy is stuck. So when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change, as Wayne Dyer used to say. So, and so everybody is really, Shannon says, block therapy has taught me to tune into the subtleties of my body in a way that is exhilarating and empowering. Chasing the pain on the block brings me home.
Oh,
Wow.
We
That's
love
nice.
that. All right. Well, thank you both. So before we go, please, I put a link to the block therapy starter program in the chat so that you know, people can get you. But for anybody that wants to reach out, how do they connect with you?
Blocktherapy.com is the website where there's a lot of information. And of course, the heart and soul, as Lisa, you mentioned, is, oh, sorry, you were talking about the membership. Sorry, to me, the heart and the soul is the community. Block therapy community on Facebook. It is, without the community, then we're simply two people lying on a piece of bamboo now. So the community gives such depth and wisdom because of the sharing of the experience. And one of the things that's interesting is, you know, people are always asking, like, do you have any research? No, I have experience of 21 years with people and their bodies and how they've responded and what's happened to them. Research to me is a very medical concept. And for me, research and science is applying something, seeing the changes and continuing to respond and make improvements from that. So that's where this community is so powerful, because people are coming in and they're sharing these experiences that they're having and the awakenings that they're having and the challenges that they're having. So it's this beautiful place where we can all learn together, because nobody knows all the answers, but when we can come together with like minds and be open to the experiences and the changes, then we become really strong as a group. And that to me is what's the most important thing.
Beautiful. We love that. It's a beautiful community that you have created. It is a beautiful process. Every single thing about block therapy is absolutely spectacular. So I thank you both so much for taking your time on a Sunday morning to come and play with us here on Solution Sunday, because the soul is the solution. So
thank you so much, Lisa. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and your amazing process. And yeah, I just want to, you know, keep being present for others to learn and to share and to love their selves.
Absolutely. When we love ourselves, we love ourselves, and vice versa.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Lisa. This has been so much fun. It's always amazing speaking with you. Your energy is awesome. So thank you. Really appreciate it.
Likewise, such an honor. Great. And everybody is saying thank you to all of us. So thank you all for joining us this week for another edition of Solution Sunday. So So thank you. And I will upload this to YouTube so that, and I'll give you guys the link so that you can share it wherever you would like.
Perfect.
And if this has been helpful to any of you that are listening, please feel free to share as well. So thank you all. All
Bye, everyone.
right. Thank
See you
you,
later.
everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.